Hey everybody out there, this is Seto Kaiba, and today for you guys I am guest uploading on Team APS's channel, and I just want to take a quick second to thank Team APS for allowing me to guest upload on their channel today. My username is Seto Kaiba, and I also want to take a second as well to thank Paul as well for allowing me to guest upload on his channel as well. So a little bit about myself, guys, and I'll get to start to today's video talking about why you should play different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And broaden your horizons. So pretty much my name is Seto Kaiba, like I said, or you can call me Kevin. I've been doing Yu-Gi tubing for many moons now, I guess you could say. I do a whole bunch of different things on my channel if you want to check it out later. I do deck profiles, duel videos, you name it, I pretty much do it, and a lot of you guys, a couple of you guys have probably already subscribed to me, but feel free to check my video out later on. So right now let's cut to the chase, cut to the hoopla, and I guess you could say, and get to today's topic, which is going to be, like I said earlier, why you should play different games, different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So let's talk about some of the benefits of playing different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Personally, from my own personal perspective, if you play a lot of decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It doesn't necessarily, you have to build them in real life, but just playing them online, you're going to take more enjoyment away from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I find that players that enjoy this game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Stick around in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot longer. And how do they do that? That's by playing decks they like. Not just playing decks that are tip-top of the meta. Not hating on the meta, but this is true. This is something that I've noticed for myself, other players around me that I've watched throughout the years. The players that just play meta every single format, get kind of bored and stale. And what do? They turn to a deck that they like, or an archetype they like. They stick with that deck for a while. They play that deck. They work on it format through format. They go for the ups and downs, the new support, and they stick with the game longer because they enjoy that deck. So playing a deck that you enjoy is another good thing. And playing multiple decks that you enjoy is another good reason to stay in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because new support is always coming out. Look at all the new fan support we're getting lately for, I guess you could say, fan archetype decks. Blue Eyes has become an archetype. Red Eyes is an archetype. Dark Magician's getting more support. Toon's got support. BLS is getting support. You name it. Buster Blader is getting support. Who thought a Buster Blader would get support ever? But this is what I mean. Playing different decks means you can take more enjoyment away from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the end of the day, and you can enjoy it for a longer period of time. Other things that I think are key reason why you should play with different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it expands your knowledge of the game as a whole. This is very important. I think many of us can agree that the knowledge is key in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge on card rulings, knowledge on card interactions, knowledge on your opponent's deck, knowledge upon what's, I guess you could say, what the deck often plays, interactions, like I said, rulings, timings, what's their power play of that deck you're playing against or whatever, and using your traps or defensive or what you're playing to stop their major pushes or know what their major plays are because you've played that deck prior. You may have not mastered the deck, but you know how it works, you know how it functions, you know what it does, and you can expect it. It's not just you're running into a dark room pretty much and then you hit the wall and you're like, oh, that's what it does. No, you have the light on and you can see what's going on. You know what's going on, per se, is what I'm trying to say here. So that's another good thing about broadening your horizons about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! You learn about card rulings more when you play different decks. You know how they interact, you know what happens when you do this and that. Another thing I'll mention is a good reason why you should play different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is because, as well as knowledge, it expands your, I guess you could say, your knowledge of the card pool in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been going on for many years, right? It's been going on since, what, 2003, 2002 here in the TCG? There are many cards that have been released in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Some are bad, some are good, etc. But if you play different decks, this gives you the knowledge of all these different cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Especially, I find this is true with players that have played this game for a long period of time. They have a more knowledge, per se, of what cards are out there in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So when they're building a deck, they may use these little tech cards that they've picked up from playing different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Put them into the more modern era of the deck and pick them up, and that's how you get techs. That's how you get new decks that get new playing styles and play them a certain way to their own preference because they've played different decks with decks similar to that in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Plus, it's really useful that when a new deck gets announced, when a new deck gets released, you can say, oh, this deck kind of functions like this deck I used in the past, so this card may work with it now. A good example I'll give to you guys is back when, I guess you could say, the Atlantean structure deck came out. a little card back then known as Surface came out. And when I was building recently, Kaiju Gradles, pretty much were Kaiju Gradles, I guess you could say, a fun deck for me, I pretty much said to myself, oh, they're a water attribute. Surface, I remember this card I used like 3-4 years ago. Okay, let me put it in my deck. Oh, it works pretty good. May not be the best card, but it works. And I remembered that card in my head because I had prior playing different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And just having a one-track mind in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I find is not the best thing. I'm not hating on people that do that. It's just true. They feel like their deck's the best and it can just pummel everything. But then when they run into a rogue deck or a deck or a mechanic or a play style or the deck's doing something that's normally they're not expecting, they get thrown off guard or they pretty much run off the rails of the train track, so to speak, and they don't know what's going on. So it's good to broaden your horizons, and have more knowledge about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because overall that will make you a better player. The more you know about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall, the more you know from playing decks and knowing the interactions those cards have with each other, and the more when you run into that deck sometime down the road maybe, or whenever, or when you'll pretty much know how to face against it. That's why it's always good to play the meta decks and the rogue decks of that format. And so you have a knowledge for the future, even when those decks are long gone and dead, you may run into it one day, and you know what to expect. And also when you're playing in tournaments, you need to know what's going on. You need to know that not every game is going to be a mirror match. You may face some rogue in a regional. You may face other decks besides yourself. You need to know what those decks do. You need to have at least some idea to win in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And knowledge, like I said at the beginning, is very key. So that's what I think, guys, why you should play different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It makes you a better player overall, and makes you a more rounded, better player in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And overall, the more better players we have in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall, the more fun we can all enjoy from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And take away at the end of the day, I find. And that, to me, is very important. Having good players that know what they're doing, and having good players that I can play against to enjoy the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the long run. Because at the end of the day, I feel like it's not all about winning and losing. It's about enjoying the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's why I play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So guys, tell me why you think it's a good idea, or if you don't think it's a good idea, why you should play different decks in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Granted, do not be like me, please, and build like a million different decks, because it's fun, but it's hard to keep updating every single deck, and I've really lost track of how many decks cores I own. I lost track after 40 something. But that's beside the point here, guys. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you go check out my channel if you did enjoy this video. I had very much fun making this video. And tell me what you think down below, guys. Do you think it's a good idea to broaden your horizons in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And play different decks? Or do you think it's a bad idea? You may think it's actually a bad idea. But tell me what you think down below, guys. Until next time, take care. Have fun dueling. Good luck dueling. I'll see all of you guys next time. Seto Kaiba, guys. I'm out here till next time. Good luck dueling to all of you. And take care, everybody.